Bitter endings. Both the men's and women's basketball teams have concluded their seasons. Dancing with the Stars. The dance team took home the W in the Southeast Regional Qualifier, and we have two dancers in studio to give us the details. And trading places. Our reporters will discuss the latest in the NHL trade deadline. It's time to come on down to the Pioneer Sideline. Good evening and welcome to the Pioneer Sideline. I'm Kiara Fry. Both basketball seasons have finally come to an end. Colton Tobias joins me now to discuss how those endings played out. Thank you for joining us, Colton.
Thanks, Kiara. Always great to be back.
So let's start with women's basketball. IU East took the women's team out of the playoffs, so the women's team missed the playoffs this year. What do you think kind of factored into that game and them missing the playoffs this season?
Well, Kiara, it was a 76-66 loss in favor of IU East, and I think they knew going in that they had to win this game, so it was all hands on deck. And I think there was a few games that the Pioneers wish they would have had back this year, but the cards just didn't turn in their favor as they had missed the playoffs after making it last year.
So the women's team did play their last regular season game over spring break against Ohio Christian. Could you just tell me how that game went for the women? Was it a good end or a rough end to their season?
Oh, it was a good end, Kiara. 92-88 win over Ohio Christian. It was just a great game overall. Freshman Taylor Wren led the team in points and rebounds, and Bailey Mook, one of the seniors, had 9 assists. So it was an overall game, and it was very sad to see the three seniors go, and Bailey Mook, Tyra James, and Ariana Sanders. They're truly going to be missed.
So like you said, the game was the senior game, and we are losing 3 seniors, but there have been a lot of freshmen and underclassmen that have kind of had a really good season and stood out. So what do you think it's going to mean for the team next year, having so many returners and only losing a few seniors?
Well, I think it's going to be great here, knowing that the two Taylors have really stepped up this year in Taylor Wren and Taylor Kushner, not to mention they're both freshmen, so they're not really going anywhere. And what more can we say about Michelle Burns, who is going to be returning for her senior year, so she's not going anywhere. I think she's going to be fire like she has always been with her career at Point Park. So I'm pretty confident that during the offseason, Coach Grenick is really going to rally up the women and really get them back on track into even a better season for next year. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Now, looking over to the men's side of things, they saw a slightly more successful ending to their season with the same conference record as the women, 7-9, and they did end up making it to the playoffs. So first, could you tell me just about the end of their regular season with their senior day game against Ohio Christian?
Yeah, sure, Kiara. It was just a lopsided game for the men. They dominated throughout the game, and they ended up getting the win. It was just a good way to end the season as they tried to prepare for the playoffs, but it really didn't go out in their favor there.
Yeah, so on the other side of things, the men do only have 1 senior versus the 3 seniors on the women's team, and that's DeAndre Brown. But all of the starters for the men's team are returning. What do you think that means for the men's team? They made the playoffs this year. They did lose in the first round, but all of their key players are coming back.
Well, I actually got the chance to travel to IU Kokomo to watch the Pioneers play as they fell 97-63 in favor of IU Kokomo. Now, I spoke to Coach Lewandowski after the game, and he said he's excited about next season. He thinks the players are really going to be motivated, but he brought up an interesting point. He said just making huge jumps as a program is not enough for him. He wants this team to go to the next level because they really did make strides after having all these losing seasons over the past couple of years. And it's great knowing that they're only losing DeAndre Brown and all the starters are coming back. You're going to have guys like Adam Scott, Gary McHenry, Cameron Shockley, Jesse Calloway. All of these guys are going to be coming back. And you just cannot just feel the excitement, I think, going into the offseason, because I think Coach Lewandowski and his coaching staff are really going to have these men fired up. I can't wait to see what they're going to do next season and to see if they can build on the season that they had this year.
Now, not to bring down the positivity just a little bit, but the men did lose that game against IU Kokomo. What do you think they could have done better to win that game, and what do you think they can really learn from this playoff experience this season?
Well, they pretty much got outplayed the whole game, Kira. The star for Kokomo, Sean Hampton, he's been I think he's been nationally recognized in NAIA Division II with so many records in the top 10 and the top 5. He was just too much for them. He had a lot of blocks here, and I think the Pioneers just couldn't really capitalize on rebounds and big plays because I think that their offense didn't do that bad, but on the defensive side, I think they could have done a lot better. Kokomo really did a phenomenal job drilling shots from the three-point line. So I think that's something that they can really work on. I think defense is going to be a big key for the Pioneers this season because knowing that they are going to be that they're going to be getting all these starters back. I think their offense really did improve this season. I think they have to work on the defensive side of things.
Okay, well, thank you, Colton, for breaking down basketball for us. After the break, our reporters will give us the latest from around the region and the country. We'll be right back. All right, so that's all the positions for this show. We can go ahead in the studio and get set up.
Wait, where's Nick and Taylor?
I guess they took Start Your Mornings with Us a little too seriously.
Start your mornings with us! Only on Daybreak!
Welcome back. Whippeal basketball is just finishing up, but first we start with the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins were on the road this past weekend, and it wasn't a road trip with a happy ending. The Penguins came up short Friday night, falling to the Ducks 3-2, and Saturday the Penguins got shut out by the Sharks 5-0, bringing the Pens' losing streak to a season high of 6 games. This is also the first time the Penguins have lost 6 games in a row since the 2011-2012 season. The Penguins finally returned to home ice tonight with hopes to end this losing streak. In their first home game since February 22nd, the Pens will take on the Ottawa Senators, but this weekend was a little bit more exciting here in Pittsburgh. Whippeal basketball championship games were also played this past weekend at the Pedersen Event Center, and it was a championship weekend to remember. Laurel Highlands freshman Rodney Gallagher led his team to its first Whippeal title in 52 years. And the North Catholic girls basketball team became only the 6th team to win 4 consecutive Whippeal titles. Southmoreland High School's girls basketball team also made its first ever Whippeal Championships appearance, and fans were there to see it all. According to the Whippeal, this year's 12 boys and girls championship games brought a total of approximately 23,200 fans to the Pedersen Event Center. According to the Post-Gazette, that number is the most fans that have attended since the Whippeal started playing all boys and girls basketball title games at the Palumbo Center back in 2000. Transitioning from our area to a national scale, Jess Dillon is in studio with her Sideline debut to keep us up to date on everything we need to know. Jess?
Thanks, Kiera. This morning, the NBA released an official statement telling all of its coaches, trainers, and athletes to beware of physical contact with fans in the midst of the coronavirus epidemic. The league told players to avoid high-fiving fans and strangers and to not accept any items given to them. The league also said that they are working with infectious disease experts as well as the Center for Disease Control to avoid an outbreak amongst athletes. Since the statements released to the players on Sunday night, many players have taken to social media or have since made statements saying they are not concerned about contracting the disease from fans. Jimmy Butler of the Miami Heat said, quote, "I don't think I'm about any of that. I'm still going to be who I am. We're still going to be who we are," end quote. Over on the ice, the NHL trade deadline was February 24th, and plenty of teams made some big moves around the league. Our case of the week this week will be diving into which players went where, but some were certainly made national headlines in the hockey world. And finally, spring training is in full swing. Teams from both American and National Leagues are using their time in much warmer areas as a time to test lineups and see what their younger players are made of, and introduce back some of the players that missed the end of last season due to injury. The opening day is set for March 26th. That's all for National. Back to Kiera at the desk.
Thanks, Jess. When we come back, I'll be joined by two standouts from Point Park's competitive dance team. Don't go anywhere. All right, so that's all the positions for this show. We can go ahead in the studio and get set up.
Wait, where's Nick and Taylor?
I guess they took Start Your Mornings with Us a little too seriously.
Start your morning with us! Only on Daybreak!
Welcome back to Sideline. Over the weekend, Point Park's competitive dance team claimed the NAIA Competitive Dance Southeast Regional Competition. Joining me now is senior dancer Janaea Cobb and sophomore All-American dancer Nicole Capalco. Ladies, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you guys competed in a different region this time. It was a little bit different. So just tell me how regionals went for the dance team overall.
I would say that it went really well for us. Overall, we ended up coming home with a first place recognition. So yeah, I thought it went really well.
Yeah, it was great coming home from Alabama with that first place trophy. It was a great way to represent Point Park and the school, and it was the first time that Point Park has won a regional title.
Being the group to win the first regional title for Point Park's competitive dance team, how did that feel for you guys? What was your reaction to finding out that you guys won?
For me, I was really excited since, as Nicole said, that it was our first time winning our region and it's never happened before out of all my 4 years as a competing athlete, so it was really exciting for me.
That moment when we found out we won first place was insane. We were all incredibly happy and proud of ourselves.
So like Janaea said, you guys, this was the first time that you guys have won your region, but the Point Park dance team has qualified for nationals beforehand. And Janaea, you were a part of the team for all 3 years that has happened. That's so exciting. So what do you guys think, being a team that has been to nationals before and having team members like Janaea that have been there 3 times is going to do to help you guys do well at nationals this year?
Yeah, I would say that it definitely just prepares us a lot more. Like, we are able to go in and know what to expect, know what the environment's going to be like, and just like what to expect going in, what we need to prepare for. So just having that experience beforehand definitely is going to help us to like get there and get the job done.
Now, at the regional competition, you guys competed twice, the preliminary round and then again in the final round. So at the end of the preliminary round, you guys were actually in second place behind one other team. What kind of went into preparing for the second round, and what do you think the major differences were between your preliminary round performance and your final performance?
I would say that like a big difference for us was we kind of went in a little bit nervous. We didn't really know what to expect, mainly because we were kind of going in first, which is typically seen as like being put at a disadvantage, since the judges, they're not really sure like what the bar would be set at depending on how the teams perform. So we were a little bit nervous, but during the second round we knew that we had to make up about 6 points, so we kind of had to bring it back down and just figure out what we needed to hone in and get the job done, basically.
Yeah, after the first round, when we realized we were in second, we knew there was a 6-point gap in between us and first place. So we knew we had to make up that gap in order to bring home the title. So during the break, we cleaned up our skills, we worked on our formations and our facials, and I feel like that's really what set it over the top that last time.
So now that you guys are back at Point Park, what are you doing in your practices that's helping you prepare for nationals?
I would say that we are practicing a lot more. We also have all made the effort to focus a lot more, make sure that our practices are not only just like getting the job done, but we're being very efficient in making sure that like we're practicing what we need to practice, our weaknesses, and strengthening our strengths as well. So yeah.
So nationals this year is in Iowa, not the most exciting location, but I'm sure you guys are still excited. So what are you guys excited for most about going to this national competition?
I'm very excited to travel with the team, and these are some of my best friends, so just making memories and continuing to have fun with everyone and compete one last time in the NAIA for the season.
Yeah, I also would say that I'm really excited, since it is my senior year, just to compete with all my best friends one last time in the NAIA and just make memories and have fun.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on and talking to us.
Thank you.
After the break, we debate. We'll be right back. All right, so that's all the positions for this show. We can go ahead in the studio and get set up.
Wait, where's Nick and Taylor?
I guess they took Start Your Mornings with Us a little too seriously.
Start your morning with us! Only on Daybreak!
Welcome back to Sideline. It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Case of the Week. This week, how have teams from around the NHL fared since the trade deadline on February 24th? To debate, we bring in Colton Tobias, Ray Hasenstab, and RJ Garrison. So guys, first, I just want to start with who you think the biggest winner is at the end of this trade deadline.
I think it was Vegas. They addressed their back goalie situation by bringing in Robin Lehner. They got rid of Cody Eakin, who hasn't really worked with them this season, and they bring in Alec Martinez and Nick Cousins, both of whom have had success with this Vegas team so far. I believe in the first 4 games that Martinez has, 4 points. Not a bad thing for a defenseman to have.
What about you, Colton? Who do you have?
I'm going with the team that's on pace to win the President's Trophy, and that is the Boston Bruins, picking up Andre Case from the Ducks.
Okay, and what about you, Ray? Or RJ, my bad. I was thinking reverse order.
Technically, it can be shortened to Ray, yes.
Alright,
But
well,
I'd also have to say Vegas is a very strong candidate for the winner.
Okay.
Addressing that backup goaltender that they need. Boston addressed some issues for the depth that they needed. And I say you could possibly throw, not Vancouver, Edmonton into that mix too for finally being able to be buyers at the deadline for once in over a decade, I think.
I'd say 2 decades, just about.
Probably somewhere around there. They've been bad for a long time.
Last Stanley Cup final appearance was 2006 when they lost to Carolina, so yeah, that's pretty.
And that's the last time they were buyers, so it's been since then.
Now, on the other side of things, who do you guys think the biggest kind of, not necessarily losers are, but who kind of missed out come the trade deadline?
Buffalo. It was strange to see them buy Dominic Cahoon and Wayne Simmons at the deadline for a team that's hovering near the bottom of not only their division, but the Eastern Conference. This is a team that should have sold, and to only sell off Sherry and Rodriguez to the Penguins while buying, again, Cahoon and Simmons, it just doesn't make sense.
Maybe they're trying to build for next year with Eichel.
I would say it seems like they're really sick of selling at this point and want to try to make a run, even
the-
how unlikely
The only
it
issue is, if I'm not mistaken, Cahoon is a free agent at the end of the year. I know Simmons is also a free agent at the end of the year. So it's just buying rentals for Buffalo. Doesn't make sense.
Well, what do you think, Colton? Who do you think missed out?
Toronto, because they didn't do much with it.
Yeah, and on the lines of a team that didn't really do much, how about the one that probably has the most cap space for any cup contending team, the Colorado Avalanche? They could have easily gone out and gotten another big guy to help solidify that second, and possibly, if you want, just for funniness, put him on the third line, because why not? We did it with Kessel, and we got 2 Stanley Cups out of it.
I don't think that they really had anything they needed to address, because at the time Mikko Rantanen had just gotten injured. They bring in Vladislav Nemestikov, who's a good depth acquisition, but really their biggest goal was get their guys healthy again. And they also picked up another rental, Michael Hutchinson, for their goalie situation as Grubauer went down with an injury.
That's fair enough.
Now, in your points, you guys both kind of mentioned the rest of this season, but also moving ahead to next season. So how do you really measure who was the most successful come the trade deadline? Do you focus more on how the trades could impact the rest of their season or how it could impact the team next year?
Impact not only this year, but in the coming years, especially with Vegas. Egan, the year has not really worked with them, and they've had a very noted issue with finding a backup goaltender. Getting Leonard address that terrible backup goalie situation and having that center depth really helps this team out, especially with Mark Stone going down for at least the next 6 weeks of this season with an injury.
Colton?
Well, I mean, you're all right, Ray, because Fleury can't play forever. But anyway, I think with the NHL trade deadline, I think it's more towards this season, because when you see teams like trading for good players, these are usually teams that are in Stanley Cup contention at this point. And that's why I was very sad to hear that Joe Thornton didn't get traded from the Sharks, because his time might be running up for a Stanley Cup.
He wanted to get out of San Jose really bad and go for a cup. The Pens were on a trade discussions with him, apparently. And I really think you need to take it team-by-team basis. If you're a team like Detroit, you sell everything, get picks, get prospects, build for the future. If you're like Tampa, Boston, or even Pittsburgh, you build for right now and try to get yourself another Stanley Cup. You got to take it on a team-by-team basis.
To add to the point, looking into last season, Columbus did that by acquiring Matt Duchene and Ryan Zingle, and it led to them not only winning this first series in their franchise history, but embarrassing the Tampa Bay Lightning.
And I consider one of the greatest upsets in NHL history.
You could easily say that, especially considering that Tampa was the President's Trophy winners, expected just to walk to the Eastern Conference Finals for the most part, and then you get swept by the team that barely squeaked into the playoffs. I laughed so hard when that happened.
Same here.
So did I.
Now, you all of you kind of mentioned the playoffs. So, is there any specific move before this trade deadline that you guys think will make a big impact on the Stanley Cup playoffs with teams either qualifying for the playoffs or how the finals might end up?
I really think Carolina boosting up that defense, getting guys like Vatanen and
Shea.
You gotta love these foreign names. They're so lovely to pronounce, but so hard at the same time.
Yes.
But bolstering that defense, especially with it being so injured, imagine when they get all their defensemen back and healthy. That's going to be a really good defensive pairing, and their offense isn't too shabby. They could make a surprise run, but you can't look past Boston or any of the other big names that have boosted up and helped their depth.
I think the Capitals getting Kovalchuk.
For me, I think San Jose made a terrible move in selling Goodrow.
Well, thanks for joining us, guys. That's all the time we have this week. Be sure to join us next week at the same Pioneer time, the same Pioneer channel, the same Pioneer Sideline.